One of the best ways to get better reception on a handset is to take the antenna that you have and hook it up to something like a J-pole. I started using BNC connectors, which are these guys, for my antennas. Now you get these little union adapters and you can turn them into something that can hook up to your antenna and make a great connection that's perfect every time. Let me show you how it's done. Now you've gone to ARRL and you've looked at 8 million different ways to build a J-pole, and you found one that involves ladder line, and you want to be able to hook it up right there. Now look, I totally get that you can take coaxial cable and you can take the braid and you can thin it out and you can twist it up nice and you can bend the other piece over and you can solder this down. I don't know about you, but I think this is ugly, and these pigtails that it makes are kind of clumsy to work with, and this piece doesn't bend very well. Now, I'm new to ham radio, and I'm sure that somebody's going to say something that is going to tell me that I'm doing it wrong, but this is working for me. Now, I started looking at BNC connectors and if you could get BNC pigtails, and you can. You'll see here on a screenshot that you can buy these for $16 or $20 or something like that. But when I started looking at that, I'm thinking, 20 bucks for a little connector? I'm not too keen on that. And I was wondering if I could make it. Now, you can buy BNC unions for, I think it's $5 for 10 or even less than that. And you can make a little antenna adapter just like this guy for just pennies. So let me walk you through how easy this is to do. Now, the biggest thing is to get one of the sides of this guy broken off. You can get a jeweler saw, which is a little tiny saw. These things are freaking magical, and you'd be able to cut through that little edge no problem whatsoever. But I also found that side cutters are just good enough to get the edge off of this thing. Regardless, you can cut that little collar off really easy, and that's all you really need to do to be able to create a pigtail for a BNC female. Now you're gonna have sharp edges on this. In this case, what I did is I have a little jeweler's lathe and I can spin off the edge, but there's no reason why you can't just take a file and break the edge off of this little piece. Past that, it comes down to just soldering. So you need to get the piece of wire that you're going to use as the pigtail. Take one of the pieces and pre-tin the solder onto the wire. It's very important that you do this. It just makes everybody's life easier. Make sure that you always use flux. Let me say that again. Always use flux. It's going to make your life infinitely easier. 90% of the problem that I've ever seen with people soldering is the fact that they aren't using any flux. That rants over. In the end, what you need to do is put that first line down the center of this little guy and solder that in. So just leave a little bit of it sticking out, get your soldering iron on there, heat it up so that the pre-tinned wire starts to melt, and push it in. Add a little bit of extra solder, but you probably don't need to. It's going to join, you're going to give it a little tug, and it should be fine. The next part is to, on the outside edge of this guy, right along there, that piece that you cut, you're gonna have to pre-tin it again. So you're gonna have to soak this in a lot of heat. So depending on the soldering iron, if you have a little soldering iron like you see me using here, is that you're gonna find that it doesn't dump enough heat in very fast. I'm not saying that you can't do it, but it's just gonna take you a little longer. Warm it up a lot until you have the solder actually melting. Bring in the other pre-tinned wire, put it down on there, hook them both up. Really, at that point, all you have to do is get some heat shrink, cover over the top of it, heat it up so it shrinks down, and you will have a pigtail that you can use to make a J-pole antenna. Now, when you have something like a ladder line, you can take the pigtail that I have here, you can solder on the points there, hook on another piece of heat shrink, and now you have an antenna with a connector on it that all you need to do is take your BNC connector, snap it together, and then hook the other end to your radio. And it didn't cost you $16 to $20 to get one of those pigtails to buy from a big box store or an electronics store. I'm hoping that helped you out. Please let me know in the comments down below if it's something that you can use, or if you think the pigtails that I have are going to cause me any issues as far as transmission and stuff goes. And I'm fully aware that this is a fairly light line. I'm only going to be running 5 to 10 watts through it. If I was going to run something like 100 watts through, I'm obviously going to be using some heavier wire.